In my talk today, I'm presenting a study that is a part of the panel Making Friends and Enemies, Competition Strategies Among the German Language Cultural Press in the First Half of the 19th Century. The two further talks within the panel are authored by Hedwig Pompe and Rolf Haser. Our panel focuses on periodicals that were devoted to widespread coverage of the literary cultural field. In order to illuminate the distinctive features of this periodical literature, considered a highly innovative genre at this time, the panel explores the most influential media of the German language cultural marketplace, Zeitung für die elegante Welt, Der Freimütige and die Abendzeitung. These competing periodicals were able to succeed due to various strategies they quickly adopted. By doing so, they were effectively addressing both the demands of transregional networking in terms of production and consumption, as well as the local factors dictated by the publishing places in Leipzig, Berlin and Dresden. Literary activities in the 19th century are characterized by their great variety and dynamism. Two phenomena played a particularly formative role: the transformation of the press into a modern media form and the evolution of entertainment as a cultural practice of the new public sphere. Both are notable for their broad public appeal and influence on the cultural processes of the era. And for precisely this reason, they are often dismissed as belonging to mass culture and only play a marginal role in the major literary histories. I, therefore, address this neglect by putting these media forms at the center of my presentation. At the beginning of the 19th century, the press and entertainment came together in the form of an innovative medium, magazines for cultural entertainment, or so-called belletristic journals. These cultural magazines actively participated in the development of a new literary market, especially during the first half of the century, up until the European Revolution of 1848. In my talk, I'm going to illustrate how the editors of the Zeitung für die elegante Welt positioned their publication in the leading role over a long period of time, while dynamically shaping the target audience with regard to cultural consumption. I consider editorial settings of two different periods. Firstly, a close look at the time period when the periodical was founded reveals strategies developed in Leipzig in 1801, which helped it to prevail against competition from established press outlets from Weimar, such as Journal des Luxus und der Moden and London und Paris. Secondly, I outlined the strategies of Heinrich Laube and August von Binzer to defend the position of the Elegante Zeitung on the press market against the publishing house Friedrich Cotta in 1830s. At this time, the trend-setting periodical from Leipzig found itself increasingly under pressure from the growing number of society and fashion magazines. The highly successful Morgenblatt für gebildete Stände from Stuttgart posed a particular threat. As a result, new editors were appointed in Leipzig in order to reshape the periodical's profile. Coinciding with the start of the new century, the first issue of the Zeitung für die elegante Welt appeared on the 1st of January 1801. A product of the Leipzig publisher Voss, it was the first belletristic journal in the German language. It was published by Voss continuously for nearly half a century until 1847. A programmatic definition of the magazine's target audience indicates a key motivation for the project. As the publication's name suggests, it was not aimed at either a learned or an educated readership. Rather, the editors explicitly addressed an audience of the elegant world, which presents itself as a form of imaginary community. In an announcement from the publisher, the founding editor Karl Spazier describes one part of the broader public whom the magazine was meant to speak to, namely that which we wish to be understood with a reference to the elegant world, and which is none other than those favored class of people who have a right to call themselves thus by virtue of their culture, rank and affluence." Unquote. The Elegante Zeitung was thus by no means addressed to everyone. In sharp contrast to illustrated magazines like Pfennig magazine, which would later programmatically address itself to precisely such a popular audience. Quote, "Modesty and urbanity are the central principles of this paper, which is dedicated to educated persons and hopes to not be unworthy of a place in the refined circles of polite society," unquote, wrote the publisher Georg Voss in an advertisement in 1800. The Elegante Zeitung was the first magazine in the German-language publishing market that could compete with the established format of the monthly cultural periodicals, which until this time had been the main organ dedicated to disseminating knowledge about luxury products. In the late 18th century, journals promoting new practices of cultural consumption and urbanity had been pioneered by the publishing house of Friedrich Justin Bertuch in Weimar. They bore the evocative titles such as Journal des Luxus und der Moden, Journal of Luxury and Fashion, and London and Paris. The appearance of the Zeitung für die elegante Welt had a lasting impact on this publishing sector and contributed to the development of a distinct genre. As the author of Studien und Kritiken der deutschen Journalistik wrote in 1839, the Leipzig magazine, quote, "marks the beginning of belletristic journalism in the true sense of the word," unquote. The Zeitung für die elegante Welt initially appeared in an almost daily basis and thus, as one brochure wrote, it dispersed quickly and in brief the newest and most essential matters from the wide world to the elegant world, unquote. This was the prototype of a new genre of newspaper, the belletristic press, the feuilleton or cultural magazine, characterized an inclusive kind of sociability, a broad palette of entertainment settings, and striking topicality. The potential of the Elegante Zeitung from Leipzig was instantly recognized by other contemporary media producers, quickly resulting in the production of similar rival publications. August von Kotzebues, der Freimütiger oder Berlinische Zeitung für gebildete, ungefangene Leser, or the Free Spirit, or the Berlin newspaper for the polite and impartial reader, published by Sander and later on by Fröhlich in Berlin, was the first of these in 1803. It was followed in 1804 by the Petersburgische Deutsche Zeitung zur Unterhaltung gebildete Stände, edited by Traugott Müller. In 1806 by the Allgemeine Theaterzeitung und Originalblatt für Kunst, Literatur, Musik, Mode und geselliges Leben, published by Adolf Bäuerle in Vienna and Trieste, and in 1807 by Friedrich Cottas Morgenblatt für gebildete Stände or the Morning Paper for Polite Society in Tübingen in Stuttgart. From 1806 onwards, the Freimütige had the subtitle Ein Unterhaltungsblatt, or a paper for entertainment, a catchy description for the new medium at the time when the German term Unterhaltung bore no pejorative connotations. The semantic change surrounding the German term Unterhaltungsblatt in the second half of the 19th century makes it difficult to place this genre within its correct historical context. It is more appropriate to refer to it as belletristic journal in the term used at the time, or to describe this new magazine format as culture newspapers, Kulturzeitung. Across Europe, numerous such publications served literary needs and cultural interests. In the second half of the century, they gained a mass media dimension in the form of sensational press. In the Habsburg monarchy in 1820s saw the establishment of numerous cultural newspapers inspired by the Theater Zeitung published by Bäuerle in Vienna, in addition to the entertainment paper Bohemia in Prague. These included the magazines Ost und West, Blätter für Kunst, Literatur und geselliges Leben, and the Ungar, zeitschriftliches Organ für magyarisches Interesse, Kunst, Eleganz, Literatur, Theater und Mode, as well as der Spiegel für Kunst, Eleganz und Mode, which included a Fulleton supplement, der Schmetterling. The growing number of magazines competing for this market segment and the rapid social changes of the format period led the successive editors of Zeitung für die Elegante Welt to repeatedly revisit the question of how this elegant world was to be understood. I quote: Wer schreibt und redigiert, soll vor allen Dingen berücksichtigen, für wen er schreibt und redigiert. Die Literaturzeitung sind für die Gelehrte, die Pfennigmagazine für Ungelehrte. Diese Zeitung ist aber für die elegante Welt bestimmt. Was heißt elegante Welt? Unquote. August von Binzer opened the first issue of the 35th year of the Elegante Zeitung with this particular question. From the perspective of the writers of Junges Deutschland, Young Germany, the dying glow of belletristic journals, as William Hauff has described the early years of the genre, already seemed to be a thing of the past. The format continued to enjoy great popularity. If one were to spread before on oneself all the current magazines offerings of the year 1827 in, I quote, public reading room, Hauff wrote, one would find at least 30 papers under various labels, all of which had taken upon themselves the task of the most suitable and appealing entertainment of the public, zweckmäßigste und angenehmste Unterhaltung des Publikums. However, Hauff noted, the receipt for success of this publication had lost its previous innovative power. I quote: Die Zeitung für die elegante Welt hat längst aufgehört, eine Zeitung für die elegante Welt zu sein. Denn schon seit geraumer Zeit ist sie zu alt, um noch eine elegante Toilette zu machen. Wenigstens verschmäht sie jene Verjüngungsmittel, die eine alte Jungfer zu einem eleganten Fräulein umgestalten. Sie war vor 15, 20 Jahren eine lebhafte, unterhaltsame Person. Hätte sie jeden eleganten, geselligen Ton beibehalten, der in jedem eleganten Zirkel Anklänge fand, man könnte sie, wenn auch die Frische der Jugend verschwunden ist, für eine interessante Dame gelten lassen, die durch geschmackvolle Unterhaltung die Aufmerksamkeit noch immer fesselt. Doch sieht man noch heute ihrem ganzen Wesen an, dass sie einst schön war, dass sie in besserer Gesellschaft lebte. Unquote. In light of these developments, it seems scarcely surprising that the publisher of the Elegante Zeitung sought for ways to improve the paper. One such rejuvenation method was engaging new editors. Heinrich Laube in 1832, followed by August von Binzer and later Gustav Kühne. An important part of the magazine tradition was mediating a form of participation in social events of elegant society. This community-building function of entertainment was now integrated in the new context of young German journalism and transformed in accordance of the belief in the history of, quote, a new era roaring around us, unquote. Instead of pleasure and convivial tone of the old Elegante Zeitung, contemporary demands now became the guiding principle of the new journalistic program, and critique and modern lifestyle became its subject matter. I quote, "The complete attire of the new elegance also includes donning the gleaming parade armor of the new era, critique," writes Laube in a message to the readers of the Elegante Zeitung in 1833 at the beginning of his tenure as editor. While Laube introduces his plans for the Elegante Zeitung with the visual metaphor of the bird's flight ending in the cozy sitting room, different imaginary is chosen 2 years later by his successor August von Binzer, that of a great assembly. In his reflections of the public gathered in this space, he looks back and assesses the magazine's past. At the center of these programmatic deliberations by the new editor in 1835 is a new definition of elegant. The elegant, according to him, is a category that encompasses, I quote, "not just sophistication and politeness, but also decorum, a learned way of life, tasteful beauty, and refined taste in all things," unquote. Von Binzer gives shape to this new, yet to be defined elegance by polemicizing against two other understandings of the term. First, he protests against a common interpretation and use of the elegant world as synonymous with the world of the nobility. Second, he critically distances himself from the foundational agenda of the magazine, which had dedicated itself to giving free rein to fashion and its caprices. Von Binzer's argument is twofold. He critically contrasts the idea of an elegant public with that of social group like polite society, and with that of cultural praxis, fashion and consumption. I quote, "Staying still is death, and forward is the catchphrase and solution of all that is life," unquote. Here the new editor evokes modernity's imperative of motion and progress, which had already been important for the revitalization of Elegante Zeitung during Laube's editorship. For a few years the entertainment magazine took on the form of a critical literary journal of young Germany, entering into competition with rich offerings of the Stuttgart magazine Morgenblatt für gebildete Stände. However, Cotta's papers had a reputation for offering its authors the highest remuneration on the market. In addition, it boasted separate thematic supplements on art and on literature. A different challenge aroused coming from the field of popular press. For the Elegante Zeitung, a circulation for up to 2,000 copies was an impressive number in the first half of the 19th century. It was thus not able to keep pace with new publications such as the Pfennig magazine, which sold up to 100,000 copies in 1847. The publisher Leopold Voss thus decided to change strategies once again. He took over the editorship of the magazine, turned the focus back to fashion instead of literature, and switched to a larger format with more illustrations, like fashion plates with current clothing styles in particular. Transformed in the fashion magazine, the Elegante Zeitung was finally removed from the publisher's program and sold in 1847. In this final incarnation as a magazine dedicated to fashion and society, it survived for the unrest of the revolutions of 1848, changed publisher multiple times, and ultimately ceased publication in 1859. Now I came to my conclusion. Like the Zeitung für die Elegante Welt, the culture journals of the first half of the century were presented as the medium for sociable activities which were considered free and distinct from professional associations which demanded corporate identity. Particularly in the early years, the Elegante Zeitung strove to communicate a playful, aestheticized picture of the world. This image was linked with a communicative model of sociability, as well as with practices of entertainment. It evoked a relaxed social setting and was supposed to contribute to a sense of individual and social well-being. Overall, the new belletristic journals placed the consumer of music, theater and paintings, celebrations and sociability, and even interior decoration and clothing at the center of his and her own media practices. Music and pictorial supplements in these magazines contributed to the establishment of the distinct modes and forms of entertainment by shaping cultural consumption around thematic and regional focuses, while the object of this entertainment varied according to the desires of a newly emerging public. The reports, reviews and images reflected a broad range of cultural events, festivities and commodities, and offered regular introductions to the latest cultural practices of entertainment. Their circulation played a substantial role in the creation of a cross-European public sphere, while offering mediatized but lively participation in social events. This medium contributed to the formation of collective imaginings. In case of the Zeitschrift für die Elegante Welt, the Leipzig-based pioneer of the culture magazines, the social imaginaries were linked with the idea of aestheticization of life, whereby the elegant lifestyle was introduced as a distinguishing social feature as well as a marker for transcending the established social order. This inclusive tendency remained of fundamental importance to the medium until the 1830s. However, its position in the field between the two extremes of entertainment, what pleases us and what pleases the many, was naturally unstable, and the related question of what actually constituted imaginary, elegant community was answered in different ways.